So my name is Megan. I'm the center director at the Mathnasium of Pembroke. I've been with Mathnasium for almost 6 months. I started off as the education coordinator, and then I became the director in March. I'm working on my bachelor's degree right now at ODU. I just got my associate's degree. I like working at Mathnasium because I like to teach kids. I like to work with students every day. I like the hands-on aspect of it, and I like to see students understand concepts that once were really hard for them, such as multiplication. It can be kind of daunting when you get up to the bigger numbers if you're not sure. So that's just a little bit about me and what I like to do and what I do at Mathnasium.
And I'm Amanda. I'm the center director for the Great Neck, Virginia location. I've been with Mathnasium for just over a year now. I started out as an assistant center director. I have been helping to manage locations basically since I started with Mathnasium. And I love seeing the kids progress. It's just wonderful to see them start out, being behind by, 6 or 12 months, and to see them just shoot ahead and just learn to love math using Mathnasium methods. So that's great. And since I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, it is fascinating to just watch their growth for me. So I love working at Mathnasium, and I can't wait to talk to you guys about how Mathnasium makes math make sense. So we're going to start off with a poll, guys.
So the question is 9 times 15. You can use paper to solve it. You can try to use mental math. However you would solve this normally, whatever approach you were going to take. And then we can talk about some different ways to solve it and see what method you used, if that works with what we do.
So we're about at everyone voting, and we have 56% saying that yes, they do know the answer, and 44% saying that no, they do not. Oh, now we're at 50-50.
Well, if you don't know, chill out. By the end of this, you're going to have an easier method of how to figure it out. So how does Mathnasium check multiplication mastery? We start with what we call a multiplication fact fluency. The first 5 questions are prerequisite skills, and then the rest are selected multiplication facts that we use to determine which numbers a student may be a little weaker in. So we do 0 times 6, 1 times 5, and such, and move on from there. And that helps us to determine where we need to start with.
So prerequisite skills are important because they can lead to you mastering different times tables. So knowing half of a number would be an important way to be able to use prior knowledge to get an answer. Being able to do doubles would help you with times 2. Being able to add 10 first would help you multiplying by 10. And being able to add and subtract 1-digit from 2-digit numbers is a prerequisite that we look for mastery on before we continue to multiplication fact fluency.
Those skills can be important because they also help with the different methods we use. Adding 10 first and being able to add and subtract are going to be very important when it comes to things like skip counting and decomposing numbers, and just having a basic understanding of how multiplication works, because it's the understanding that's really going to help you master multiplication rather than just memorizing facts.
A lot of students will memorize their times tables. That's a method that they teach in school, is just root memorization. And then when they do that, they don't really understand what the concept of multiplication means. So when they're faced with a question that they haven't memorized, they have no idea how to solve it.
Problems with memorizing include that, one, we can't say that it's truly understood why you're multiplying or how multiplication works. It takes a lot longer to just sit there and memorize than it does to have multiple strategies that you can work with if you can't remember something. There's no guarantee that you're ever going to actually keep that information long term unless you're using it on a regular basis. And then last but not least, it's super boring. And Mathnasium is all about making math fun while we make it make sense. We want kids to not only know how to do math, but to also really enjoy math. University of Chicago study in 2013 found that when kids take tests, they stress more, and stress actually causes mental blocks in the chemistry of their brains. And then that anxiety over time builds, it erodes their confidence, but it also makes it so that they can't remember things that are just straight memorized. Things that you don't know how to find a workaround sometimes. So we not only want to build fun and we want to build ability, we also want to build confidence in math ability, skills, and strategies. Having multiple strategies means that if you run into one of those blocks, you can logic your way out of that block. So if you can remember that 6 times 7 is 42, you might remember that 6 times 5 is 30, and then you can just add 6 2 more times, something like that. So our Mathnasium methods include skip counting. Skip counting is just simply counting by a number. So 5, 10, 15, 20, and so on. Basic skill that you need for this is that adding 10 first. That's one of those prerequisites we were talking about. This comes into play specifically with when we're doing our 9s, 11s, and 12s, because if you can't remember how to do 9 times 8, you can do 9. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry guys. Just totally skipped to a different method. If you're trying to skip count by 9s and you're struggling with it, you can add 10 first. So if you remember that 9 plus 9 is 18, but you can't remember what 9 plus 18 is, you can do 9 plus 10, which gets you 28, and then subtract 1, and that's the same as adding plus 9. Our next method is doubles, which Megan will tell you more about.
With doubles, it helps you with all sorts. It's not just the like adding 10. So when you do doubles, you can do 7 plus 7 is 14, and then that would be the same as 7 times 2. And then if you did 14 plus 14, since you know that 2 7s already make up the 14, that would be the same as saying 7 times 4, which can bring you to 28, which would also be 14 times 2, because that's the math you did to solve that. But then you would know that 4 7s go into a 14. And then 28, you could do 28 times 2 to get to 56. If you counted all of those 7s up, it would go to 8. And so being able to double it will help you quickly get to the end answer.
We also work with reasoning in groups. This is something that we try to teach our kids so that they have a base understanding of multiplication. When we're doing something like 3 times 2, it's the same as saying 3 groups of 2. So if you can just count by 2s, it goes back to a little bit of the skip counting, but it's the understanding that we're doing groups of 2s 3 times. So they're really getting that understanding of what multiplication is with this one.
So when you break it down and decompose it, 9 times 12 could be kind of daunting, but if you look at it as 9 times 10 plus 9 times 2, that's a little easier to figure out. So if you did 9 times 10, you would get 90, and then 9 times 2, you're going to get 18, and then you just add those together. So being able to break the multiplication problem down into questions that you understand or that you have some pre-context on, and then working to the solution that way is a good method to use as well.
So an example problem would be 8 times 7. If you can't remember that right off, but you do remember the lower 8 multiples of 8 times 3 and 8 times 4, you can break the 7 into 3 and 4, and then work out 8 times 3 equals 24, 8 times 4 is 32, and then add your answers together of 24 plus 32 and get 56. And it's the same thing, you still get the 56 either way. So why don't you guys try it out with what is 8 times 9? What would you break the 9 into? Or what did you break your 8 into? Maybe you went the other way.
I'm seeing that we have people that are splitting 9 into 5 and 4. We have a couple of people that are going backwards. They're actually using going into 10 and then a -1. I'm seeing another 5 and 4. See, I feel like with the breaking apart, 5 and 4 are going to be good ones.
Once I thought about it, when I was thinking about breaking the 8 in half, I was like, 9 times 4 plus 9 times 4. That's just using one of our doubles too.
That's personally what I was thinking as well. I was thinking like double, double, double.
So the method that we wrote out was we decomposed our 9, then multiplied 8 times both, and then finally added our answers together. So when we were thinking about this, we did the 9 times 4, the 8 times 4 and the 8 times 5. So we got our 72 that way. Another method is related facts.
So being able to pull upon facts that you already know to solve problems that you don't know how to solve is kind of all about like what Mathnasium does. They like to make it make sense knowing what you know. So if 7 times 5 is 35, then 35 plus 7 would be 42. So that just is 7 times 6. So you've already got the 5 sevens, and then you're just adding one more. So the 5 facts are usually one of the ones that's easier that people tend to know. So that would be a very traditional way to use this method, just to add that last 7 to it.
And then like in school, we do teach 0, 1, 2, and 5 first. That way you already have those easy base facts to work with before we move on to, you know, 4s, 6s, you know, and then finally, you know, 7s, 8s, and 9s.
I actually
Those
have
tend to be the
a
ones kids
story about a student with related facts. As 2 brothers, they came into Mathnasium to get assessed, and according to the dad, the older brother didn't need any help. He was really good at math, and so we asked him, what is 12 times 12? Like you said, you're good at math. Let's just ask you some questions while your brother's taking his test. And he instantly said 144. So we said, oh, good job. So what's 12 times 13? And he said, I have no idea. And as fate would have it, the boy sitting next to him was a Mathnasium student who said, well, if 12 12s, which is important that you know that he said 12 12s, because he didn't say 12 times 12. He was using his reasoning with groups. It's 144, then 13 12s would just be 12 more than that. It's 156. And that day we got 2 sign-ups because the dad realized his oldest son was trapped in memorization instead of actually comprehending what it means to multiply something. So the difference here would be stereostatic knowledge, only knowing when it's right to use it. And we want to teach a dynamic knowledge that is able to form the basis for future learning. And that's what these different methods teach.
So why don't you guys try 9 times 9? Tell us what method you chose, or try the one we just talked about. So the method that we used was the one we just talked about. We used a related fact of 9 times 10, like one of you guys pointed out. That's one of those really easy ones everybody remembers. And then we know that 9 times 9 is just 1 less 9. So we subtracted 9 from 90 and got 81.
So repetition is a key part. Repetition is not always memorizing though. Just continuously practicing your multiplication skills is what repetition means. It doesn't mean memorizing them. Repetition is the application of knowledge in practice, and like all things, practice will help you get better. So using flashcards and everything like that, that works and that helps. Answering the questions orally, repeating the answers back to somebody, just practicing online. There's all sorts of ways, coming up with questions for yourself to practice. But getting that repetition is a key part of understanding and being able to draw upon those related facts quicker, because you'll get more familiar with those facts that you already know. And then you'll be able to add things to your knowledge, different things that weren't already something that you drawed upon as a related fact will soon become more natural to use as a related fact.
So what can you guys do at home as parents to help your students become better at multiplication? Things you can do at home is definitely use those flashcards. We are not against flashcards. Flashcards can be super helpful, and extra practice never hurts. But something that can help to expand their knowledge and understanding of multiplication is to also use images of objects, use real world objects, use real world examples. When you're at the grocery store, talk about, you know, prices. $5 is the same as saying 5 times however many boxes of crackers they wanted to buy today. You know, think outside of the box when your child struggles to answer a multiplication question. Give them a different strategy. This multiplication does not just have to be a mind exercise for your child. It can also be a mind exercise for you. Can you think outside of the box and use a different strategy to help them solve the problem? And then also keep your language math positive. Nobody is not a math person. That's kind of like saying somebody's not an English person. It doesn't sound right, right? It's about saying you don't know how to do this problem yet. You will always be able to master something by finding a better strategy or thinking about it in a different way or just learning something new. So make sure that when you're talking to your kids, you tell them to be positive about themselves and you be positive about it too. That's where one of the kitchen table struggles comes from, is just using better, more positive language.
A few more resources we can talk about if you want to get in the kitchen and learn some math that way. Amanda does have a series on the Mathnasium of Great Neck Instagram for a shorter version. If you want the full version of her videos, go on her YouTube channel. It's called Food Math Fridays. She does all sorts of math, but definitely does do some multiplication in there if that's a specific topic that you're looking for help on. But she does stuff with fractions and conversions and all sorts of stuff that just makes math in the house a little more normal and can get the conversation flowing a little bit there. There's also some cool lessons on our Facebooks with the Mathnasium method from the Mathnasium Schoolhouse page. They go over things in pretty good detail. They use nice graphics. There's images to follow along with. And you can ask questions on there as well, and you'll more than likely get a response.
Yeah, I watched the one on place value. It was entertaining and it was very informative. Opened my eyes a little bit to some of our Mathnasium methods that I wasn't as familiar with. And it was just a great lesson for everybody who was watching. And then this is the last slide, I promise, guys. Using one of the techniques that we talked about earlier, can you figure out 9 times 15 easier than before? So another poll coming your way.
So far we're at 100% yes, that they can figure out a little bit easier than before. Some things I've gotten comments on is people say they definitely like chunking the best. So doing multiplication by chunks, which I really like how you called it that. I also see someone who's saying they did 9 times 10 and 9 times 5 and added those together, which is another good method to use.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, it looks like a lot of people did learn a new strategy that they can use.
Awesome. So cool part about Mathnasium, guys, is that we do test multiplication first to figure out where we need to start on our method for our kids. But then we also do progress checks along the way. We retest them on these facts and methods to find out whether or not they are making progress with it, as well as to make sure that they're fluent with it. So it's not just about whether or not they can answer a question for us. It's also about how quickly and fluidly they can do so. So we do test speed when we test our multiplication fact fluency.
First question I had is, why can't I just use a calculator for all of my multiplication?
Using calculators is very popular now, both in school and in life. They are super easy to use, and they are fast. But what about when you don't have a calculator handy? It's just one of those things where it's better to be able to do something by hand first, so that you have a true understanding of why you're doing something, how you're doing something, what answer you got, and then use a calculator after to make things faster and simpler. But what about the day when you just don't have one handy?
Or like your phone is at 1%. Are you really going to risk that to use the calculator?
Yeah, I mean, I've had my phone at 1% before, and I'm like, I'm not even going to open this text message till I get home.
Okay, so another question we had was, is there anything other than flashcards that I can use to help my student practice and learn to understand multiplication?
Oh, for sure. The number one real world example that I love is the hot dog buns and hot dogs. If you're hosting 4th of July party, how many hot dogs and hot dog buns do you have to get? Because they come in packs of 6 versus 8, right? So why would they do that? Because they want you to buy more. So what's an easy one? 6 hot dogs times 8 buns to get the same number, right? Grocery store is one of my favorite places to do multiplication practice. Same thing with obviously Food Math Fridays. I like multiplication in the kitchen as well. What about that day that you want to do a double batch of brownies instead of a single batch?
And your phone's dead.
And your
How are you going to do that? You can't use your calculator. You gotta be able to do the math.
Or you have like brownie batter on your hands already. You can't touch your phone right now.
Exactly. So.
Okay, we've also got a question about Mathnasium in general. So they said, are your assessments an interview or paper pencil?
They're both, actually. We start off with an oral questionnaire to help us figure out which written portion to give to our students. And then the oral portion can also include a numerical fluency, which is basic concepts that you need prerequisite to learn anything. And then we move up from there.
Okay, and then I have a question. Why is multiplication fluency important? Can't I do well enough with just addition?
You can. I wouldn't suggest it though, because when you start getting into those 2-digit by 3-digit numbers, that's a lot of adding, and it's going to take you a long time. And it's you're probably going to make a calculation mistake in there somewhere more often than not, just because you're adding so many numbers over and over again. Multiplication makes things move faster. And it's also something you're probably going to use fairly regularly in life.
I will add to the person that asked about using a calculator for object multiplication that kind of in the same way that like doing repeated addition can take a lot of time. Honestly, using your calculator sometimes can take more time than just being able to figure out the answer on your own. Like by the time you get your phone out, open your calculator app, or ask Siri, like, and do all of that, you could have known the answer and done your thing already. So you just wasted a few minutes that you didn't have to.
I didn't even think about that because you have to sit there and type things in.
Or Siri mishears you 5 times, and so you're trying to ask 9 times 6, and instead Siri's like trying to Google stuff for you.
Ooh, and then user error typing things in.
Okay, so if anyone else has any questions, please continue typing them. I don't want to cut anybody off, but I will go ahead and say thank you to Amanda and Megan for giving us this talk, giving us this information. I hope that everybody that attended learned something valuable today, and we'll hang out for a few more questions. But other than that, thank you all for coming.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got a question. Where do I go to watch more multiplication facts? And I'm going to answer that one because I know our YouTube life. So we do have a YouTube channel that'll go over this same stuff as well. But if you go to Mathnasium Schoolhouse, which I know was mentioned in one of the previous slides, and I'll also include it in the follow-up email, they have a lot of videos. They talk about multiplication fluency, multiplication facts, and give you probably some more tricks. So maybe like ones we didn't go into as much. Trying to think of like the ones we didn't talk about. I guess like 11s would be another one that you can still break apart and put back together, but they go into more detail with things like that. And you could definitely find more videos like that there. Oh, we have one person who came who has gone to our math nights before. She said Mathnasium math nights are always great fun.
They are. They're so much fun. And if you guys would like to have one at your school, send us your PTA contact or have them contact us. They're free and easy, and we can set them up real fast.
And we are doing virtual math nights now, so you don't even have to leave your house.
Yeah, and those have been really successful and fun so far too.
Definitely if you're interested in a math night, if you're local to the Great Neck area, Virginia Beach, you can check out their website, and they should have on their events page a link to that.